this lesson is going to combine a few different art techniques. We are going to be drawing. For that, you will need pencil, eraser, some sort of permanent marker like a Sharpie. You will need water-based colored markers. The brighter the colors, the better. You will need a heavier piece of paper. If all you have is printer paper, you can certainly make that work. It just might get a little wrinkly. Here I have watercolor paper, but you could use cardstock, heavier construction paper, whatever you have handy. A squirt bottle with plain water in it. If you don't have a squirt bottle handy, you could, in a pinch, have a bowl of water that you will then put your hands in to create sort of water spray. You also could, if you have a squirt bottle at your house that is almost empty or has had something in it previously, you could empty it out, wash it out, and fill it up with plain water. Make sure you ask somebody before you do that, though. You also will need plain old table salt. You also will need some aluminum foil. I've used this one a bunch of times. It doesn't have to be brand new. It can be a little bit wrinkly. You want it about the size of your paper. The first thing you're going to do is draw some sort of design on your paper. You can start off with pencil and then you'll erase later, or you can just go straight to Sharpie. I am taking this image from my sketchbook as my inspiration. Once your design is complete, we'll move on to the tinfoil portion of this project. You can set this aside to dry. If you did any first marks with pencil, you can go ahead and erase those now. I have just done this graphic circle design. I've made some choices to not make my circles really go off the edge of the paper like I did here, just for a different effect. You could draw something representational. That means you draw something that looks like something that exists in real life. You could draw flowers, you could draw sky's the limit, cars, trucks, monsters, dinosaurs, whatever you want. So you can see I've got this piece of foil. It's approximate, it's a little bit smaller than my paper, but I like that. You will need bright water-based markers. It is important they are not permanent. Permanent markers will not work. For this, I'm going to color all of my foil in. You could do stripes. I'm going to do a series, since my design is circles, I'm going to repeat that pattern with my color. I'm going to do them in rainbow order. Using the flatter, wider bit of the tip of my marker, I'm coloring it in. Starting with red. Okay, here I have a sort of a big rainbow bullseye. You can tell that the marker starts to pool a little bit. It doesn't stay solid on the foil. That's okay, it's water-based, that's what's gonna happen. I like to get my markers up nice and close to each other, maybe even overlapping a little bit. You want to lay down quite a bit of color, so that's why it's best to use the side of your marker. Next step, if you have a spray bottle or a squirt bottle with water in it, you are going to wet your foil. You're going to use quite a bit. Your marker is going to start to pool up, might even run into the other colors a little bit. that's okay. If you're using a bowl of water in your fingers, this is where you would dip your fingers in the water and then just in a downward motion, splash on them. You also could very gently press with a very, very wet sponge to do this portion. Like I said, you want it pretty wet. Then I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to flip it over upside down on my foil. And then rub all over with firm, even pressure. It isn't about pressing super hard. It's more about making sure you get pressure all over and evenly rub all over into the corners and edges of your foil and your paper. You might even see some of the color start to bleed through. When you're done, you can lift, and it looks pretty cool right now. We could stop here. It looks sort of galaxy-like tie-dye, but you can take it a step further and now go back and spray over your design or rered it with the sponge. Take a small bit of table salt and sprinkle it on your design. And then walk away for about a half an hour. After your paper is dry, it all depends on how wet your paper is, how humid the day is, and how thick your paper is. Come back to your drawing and then carefully over the sink or the trash, brush off your salt. What happens is the salt ends up dissolving and creating these cool sort of tie-dye marks within your color that adds to the overall texture of your piece. You can skip the final salt part if you don't want, but it's a nice finishing touch. There you go.